Putting into context, I think, where Triumph was as the car company in 1969 when Terry wrote that all-important letter. And of course, here we are celebrating 50 years ago this weekend when the first meeting of the TR Register took place. 50 people attended from the small amount of letters that Terry had sent out. So without further ado, please welcome to the stage the founders of the TR Register, Terry and Val Simpson. I bet it wasn't this glamorous 50 years ago, was it?
I think it was, no.
Terry, I'll start with you. Firstly, why Hopcroft's Holt?
Yeah, I often think of that. I think really the answer to that was that a friend that I'd met in Hatfield, I was living in Hatfield at the time, but a friend I used to pass TRs, he was kind enough to find Hopcroft Holt. So really, I don't think I had anything to do with it, but we wanted somewhere that was more or less local to the people that had responded to my letter, and Hopcroft Holt was there.
So then, as now, mainly the main body of TR ownership was here in sort of Oxfordshire and the south of England.
I think so, from memory, yeah.
I think we stuck a pin in the map.
Stuck a pin in the map and said, that'll do.
I think it was something like that.
So tell us about your memories of the day, because it must have been a bit of a whirlwind. You sent those letters out 19th of December, which is not an awful lot of notice to give people to come to an inaugural event, but come they did, despite the weather.
Well, yeah, I mean, the weather was terrible, and I think it was terrible for the first two meetings that we had, and I can't remember when the second one was, but somebody tonight told me it was in April, so here we are in January. It was pouring with rain, and it was one of those days that it was raining when we left home, and I think it was raining when we left here. I suddenly found myself in this hall somewhere in this building, and 50 people or whatever. I mean, it was crowded. I wasn't particularly. I don't think I'd even planned to make a speech, and I think
a bit like tonight.
If I'm true to my advert, I don't think my advert even said that I would be willing to run the club, but you know, I found myself on the stage introducing the talk about the club, shall we say, and we elected a committee, as far as I remember, and off it went.
Well, what we must draw attention to is the fact that all those adverts that you can find in Motorsport magazine, if you look through the archives, and Exchange and Mart as well, you paid for them out of your own money. It was something that you had a real passion for, wasn't it? Did you ever imagine it would turn into this?
Well, no, absolutely not. I'm sure I didn't know. I mean, in those days, what was I, 27, 20, 26, 27? I don't suppose I even thought further than a week ahead, you know.
Was there any particular cars that you remember from that day that really stood out as real nice cars that had turned up?
Well, I don't know about nice cars. I think they were all rotting down quite well. I remember, I think Graham Hallett was here with the Gebecca car. Did he bring it round? I mean, he brought it round to my house when we lived in Redbourne. I assume that would have been after the first meeting. And I was lucky enough to be driven in the passenger seat, obviously, around in the Gebecca car. I think we went down from Redbourne to St Albans, turned it around at the roundabout, and back we came. And then another time I went over to Graham's house, or I think it was Graham's parents' house in Abingdon, and of course the car was there then. But I have some black and white photos with me in the car at the moment, and I think the first meeting certainly just shows Graham's car here.
When you were delving your hand into your pocket to pay for those early adverts to advertise the club and that inaugural meeting, what was your main aim? What did you want to get out of it? What was the vision at the time?
Well, I think the vision was obviously to get an owners club going, because it was just, I mean, as far as I remember, if you saw another TR in those days, more or less as you do now, you always flashed your lights or gave a wave. And there was quite a bit of that going around, but yet there was no club. And I just thought, well, there should be. We seemed to be a friendly group as we went past each other, but I just felt there should be a club.
Well, from those early beginnings, of course, Val, you oversaw the growth of it from that very first day and would end up leaving your job to come and run this thing we call the TR Register now. You really watched it grow from nothing to something quite considerable, didn't you?
Yes, I suppose I did. Very small to start with. I remember I bought a typewriter. That was the first. I worked for a firm, and I think in this firm there were 2 cricket clubs. There was a canal boat project, and along came the TR Register, which was added to the list, and all of this stuff was done. I mean, it was done with the boss's approval. Mm-hmm. But I think there was more going on the side. So it was sort of, in fact, the membership of the register was roughly based on the membership of this association. So I had something to work to, and obviously, local groups. I'm not sure at what point, I mean, Darryl can probably fill in a few details because Darryl started as group coordinator.
The 6th of June.
It's engraved. Thames Valley Group. But I mean, we were just amazed at the way the post kept coming in, and £1, 2 and 6.
Well, of course, you
2 and 6 for a membership. Was it a badge? Was it 2 and 6 for the badge and £1 for the membership?
I think so, yeah.
Well, you got to about 400 members, didn't you? And then there was a discussion at that point as to whether you capped it at 400 or whether you carried on. And if you look through the meeting minutes at the time, which I have done, there was a cap at some point of 400 members.
Oh, was it?
And there is a funny story about someone being pulled over in a van on the side of a road once, and being said, "How do I join the TR Register?" Well, we're full. There's no more room. Got flagged down on the road. But mainly, Val, that was because you were doing this in the evenings whilst running a full-time job. But then came the moment, I suppose, when you had to leave your job and turn your job into the TR Register. Was that a difficult decision at the time?
Not really, because we'd moved to Cornwall. And work was not, there was not a lot of work in Cornwall. So when the offer came from the TR Register, then obviously that was quite good. After that, we came back, didn't we? Because I do remember the spare bedroom.
But I mean, having got to Cornwall, we had to come back for committee meetings, so we found ourselves driving back, every month?
Yeah, about that.
I think so, yeah. So.
Gosh, your memory's a lot better.
And you had no real experience of running a car club. This was something that was never really done professionally by many. There were, of course, the big Bentley drivers clubs and things like that already running. So I guess you kind of had to learn on the job, did you?
Well, what I worked for was a membership-based thing. Right. So I sort of copied, the ideas from there. So it was, I wouldn't say it was easy because there was no technology in those days. I remember we used to have to type 5 or 6 labels for each new member because we had no system that would produce anything. I mean, it was carbon paper, Gestetners.
Roneo copiers.
Not even electric Gestetners. It was a hand. And there was certainly no well, unless you could afford something like a dresser multigraph plates, but you'd need thousands of members for that. So each time we enrolled a member, I used to type 5 or 6 labels, so they had those labels for the newsletters.
It's a good job you weren't doing 6,000, eh?
Yes.
Was there a particular point when you watched membership levels really take off? Do you remember that moment when you thought, wow, it went really crazy? And
I can't remember how we organised, because from the early days, the treasurer wanted to stagger, didn't he? Once we'd done the first year, the treasurer wanted to stagger the renewal dates, so the income came in quarterly. They always thought, and from an administrative point of view, that was much better. I don't know, do you know when we hit 1,000? Because it seemed to be sort of, gosh, we've got 1,000 members.
I'm someone will correct me, I think it was around 76, 77, before that. Okay. This is the great thing about it, you can always find a better memory out there, you see.
1054, Mr. Evans, yes? 1054? Correct. Yeah. Don't ask me anymore.
Wow. Still remembers the membership numbers. That's amazing. Wow. See, that if ever there was a demonstration of how the TR register changes your life forever, that is it. We'll get Pete Buckles on part numbers later on. He's just as impressive on them. So, as a final thought, really, when the pair of you were stood there 50 years ago, did you ever imagine that it would turn into what it turned into? And what do you think of the TR register now?
Very naive.
Yeah.
I mean, we hadn't been married long, had we? Was it a year?
No, 2 years.
2 years. And when the people from the factory turned up, I thought, what is going on here?
Because, of course, you had Ken Richardson early on, didn't you, write a letter of support?
I mean, you know, I thought, why are they interested in what we're doing? I think originally it was just thought of we could meet, you know, have a drink, chat TRs and all go away, all go home, you know, and probably make another date, move around. I think that's what we envisaged first of all, but it was just taken out of our hands.
What's your best memory, Val, of running the TR register? All those people, apart from Martin Birch's sandwiches, which he keeps going on about all these years later.
Martin and the sandwiches. My best memory, I suppose, I think when the internationals went to the showgrounds, I think, you know, seeing the turnout there and how I mean, nothing to do with me, really, because people came in and organised all those. But I think the showgrounds seemed to me, east of England we went to, didn't we? Oh, Prescott, we went to Prescott, didn't we? We were invited.
I think my lasting memory of the TR register would be driving a white van. I suddenly gave up driving the TR and I had to drive this white van everywhere.
There's lots of people nodding out there, yeah.
Yes, I suppose that, you know, we never went in TRs, did we?
I mean, the house was absolutely overflowing with regalia and membership cards and everything else. But it was good fun, wasn't it? We'd do it again if we had to, but we're not going.
Well, as it happens, Terry, we've got a few volunteer spots left, you know. Well, I know that the pair of you are still very much involved in classic cars, more of a Japanese slant on your taste these days. And it's lovely to see you every year at Cop Hill, where you come to the Chiltern Group display and come and say hello to us all. And it's lovely to see you every year. And thank you so much for coming tonight and celebrating half a century of the TR register. I think we'll stand up and charge our glasses, I think. Let's do that to get things underway.
Gosh, they're too kind, aren't they?
To Terry and Val Simpson at the start of the TR register. Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're too
Thank you, Wayne.
You, Terry. Ladies and gentlemen, Terry and Val Simpson.